Hi everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to the Fashion Bunker. I am back. You can see me again. I'm on and off the camera. Sometimes you see the hands, sometimes you see the face. At the moment you're seeing the face because today is a very, very important video. So I went that extra mile and this takes a lot of preparation. Welcome to the review of Chanel No. 5, the Pure perfume. I haven't reviewed the Parfum of Chanel No. 5. I have reviewed, in general, the fragrance. I've reviewed many of its concentrations and iterations. I have done kind of an overview of the spectrum of Chanel No. 5. I have done the unboxing of Chanel No. 5, the Pure Perfume 7.5 ml spray, refillable or rechargeable spray. So there's a lot of these videos on my channel about Chanel No. 5, and you could check them out in the description box down below, as well as in the card sections up here. But I haven't touched base on Chanel No. 5, the Pure perfume. And I'm going to do that today. I am dressed almost in a militant way because several reasons. One of them being the fact that I'm really tired of a lot of types of the approach that fragrances have from most fragrance reviewers. It's just nauseating, to say the least. So I'm tired of that. So I'm kind of like in this battle mode because I think things have to change and we have to stop calling fragrances in certain ways and defining them according to how many compliments they get, how attractive they may make you be to others, and how many panties can be dropped while wearing them. And it's just, it's actually really disgusting. So, but let's get to something beautiful, and something beautiful is Chanel No. 5. Chanel No. 5, the Pure perfume, being released in 1921. You have to understand, conceptualize that time, conceptualize how long ago it has happened that this fragrance has been released. Imagine that, and then imagine historically the context of the times. Those were not easy times, hence my beret again comes in handy here. By the way, wearing Vivienne Westwood beret, Chanel brooch, the faceless pharaoh, which also comes in handy here. By the way, check out in the card the unboxing and review of the pharaoh. And I'm wearing a Christian Lacroix shirt, Chanel Métier d'Art earring, scarab, a golden scarab with hidden hieroglyph inscriptions on the back with hidden messages. A hidden portrayal of a chant or a verse of sorts, perhaps even a prayer. A lot of mystery surrounds Chanel No. 5, and a lot of mystery also surrounds the 20s. The 20s were a very difficult political time. You know, we are just out of the First World War, and already the pot is brewing, cooking, and it's being stirred by a lot of nasty politicians in World War II. It's not just around the corner, but it's going to happen, you know, quite soon. So 1921 is still, we still got away before, we still have several years ahead of us before World War II begins. But from 1921 onwards, things will just get more complicated. Chanel No. 5, here we have the little tiny 15 milliliter bottle, Splash. Is first conceived as, now we're going to get into mythology here because a lot of people say a lot of different stories. You know, we have quotes saying that Ernest Beau presented to Chanel Coco several fragrances. The fifth sample or fifth numbered bottle was allegedly No. 5. Some people say that's not true. It wasn't the fifth bottle, but she just liked No. 5 as a number because, as we know, she was a very, numerologically speaking, she loved, Coco loved numbers. She was in part, I would say, almost afraid of numbers, but let's just say she respected numbers very much. And 5 was the first concept of unisex perfumery, if you may, because 5 is the perfect blend and mix of female being the number 2 and 3, male being the number 3. So 2 plus 3 gives us a 5. 5 is the perfect mix of feminine and masculine, and that's exactly what No. 5 is. Maybe some of you remember a couple of years back, And unfortunately, the advertising campaign failed and flopped by Chanel. But for the first time ever in perfume history, a man was used to promote what, well, Chanel marketing team still describes as a female fragrance, Brad Pitt. So Brad, show us your face, your gorgeous face right there. And off you go again. That was Brad Pitt, you guys. Advertising for Chanel No. 5. And a lot of people, a lot of those customers and clients, male customers and clients that are always extremely afraid of purchasing any fragrance that is marketed to women. Heaven forbid a man were to wear a fragrance marketed to women. They would be very irritated. And I love the fact that they were irritated. But they would come to the Chanel boutiques, also on airports with these huge campaigns, huge posters, billboards of Brad Pitt for Chanel No. 5. And confusingly would be asking the sales associates whether or not this fragrance is a new reformulation for men or what have you. So it was so confusing that Chanel pulled out or pulled away or pulled back from that advertisement campaign. But prior to Brad Pitt, we have had Catherine Deneuve reviewing. I'm not Catherine Deneuve, but I am reviewing. We had Catherine Deneuve advertising for Chanel No. 5. We had Carole Bouquet advertising for Chanel No. 5. We had an unwilling Marilyn Monroe advertising for Chanel No. 5 by stating in an interview that the only thing she wears to bed is a couple of drops of Chanel No. 5. Even though she was holding a bottle of the Chanel No. 5 cologne in that particular advertisement campaign, she did mention that it was the pure perfume instead. So I'm not quite sure how much of this entire story is kind of true or not. I'm sure, just like a lot of us, she also probably had several concentrations of the fragrance. By the way, concentrations of the fragrance, 1921 saw the release of the pure perfume, followed shortly after that, around 1922, the Eau de Toilette and Eau de Cologne. Eau de Parfum wasn't even in the picture until the 80s when Jacques Polge brought it out. A very kind of bold and more Dynasty and Dallas, if you know the TV shows I'm talking about from the 80s, type of fragrance. More powdery, more heavy on the dry powder, and the irisy kind of tone to it would be the Eau de Parfum, which I also love. But we're talking about the pure perfume here. The pure perfume being developed by Ernest Beau and then kind of chosen and selected by Chanel. Another really interesting legend wants it that Ernest Beau told Chanel, you know, aldehydes, this being the first overdose of aldehydes in perfume history, aldehydes were very expensive back then. Now they're not. But not just aldehydes were in here. Around 180 plus ingredients were in the first formulation of the Parfum of Chanel No. 5. And the jasmine, the ylang ylang, the May rose, and the sandalwood, lily of the valley. Oh God, orange is in there as well. And you know, every time a kind of more exotic type of ingredient would be mentioned by Ernest Beau to Chanel, and every time he would tell her, you know, but it costs really a lot to put this particular ingredient into the fragrance, she would counter that by saying, which one is the most expensive ingredient? He would then counter back, and then she would say, good, then add double that, double on that, triple on that, add more of that. I want opulence. I want this to be unreachable, unattainable. I want the desire of people around me to want it without having the opportunity to get this fragrance. And in fact, another legend wants it that Chanel wore it herself in the beginning without it being released anywhere. She would go to these big soirees and would wear Chanel No. 5, would occasionally just have the little bottle in her purse and just kind of let it stay there as she's like on the table during dinner or whatever. And of course, again, legend, this is all alleged, wants it that all of these women would kind of, you know, they knew Coco Chanel anyway, but they would rush around her and be like, oh my God, Coco, what fragrance are you wearing? And then she would tease and tease and tease and tease the audience, and everybody desired this fragrance so much. And then finally, No. 5 was released in 1921. But quite shortly after its release, that humongous number I just mentioned, over 180 plus ingredients, were trimmed down to 80 something. So already in its first release phase, it's been reformulated. You could say one of the first big historical reformulations in perfume history. So it's not true that it's only happening today, since 2012 and IFRA and blah, 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 what have you, or brands trying to cheapen on us or cheap down on us. No, it already happened in the 20s, and it happened for a reason with Chanel No. 5, because distributing it worldwide was going to be a problem for Chanel because she did not have the resources for that. But steppeth in the Wertheimer family, and here the trouble begins. They did offer her a special deal. They offered to literally almost have the entire percentage of all the fragrances. She would have like 10%. I don't know why she said yes to that, but again, you know how the story went down. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions on this, and you know my opinion, so we're not going to touch base on all the nasty, nasty gossip around coco, because I ain't having that. They said, well, we could sell it for the same price and take around 100 ingredients out of the equation, cheapify it. We won't say we did, and we'll distribute it worldwide, and then we're going to have enough resources to make enough for everyone. So that was the first time it was reformulated, and it's still amazing today after even further reformulations happened. In fact, if you do have the opportunity to smell, I mean, the oldest bottle that I have smelled of Chanel No. 5 was from the 60s. Very similar to the Chanel No. 5 we smell today. Pure perfume. We're talking only pure perfume here, guys, not the other concentrations. So you have to invest a little if you want the pure perfume. And if you want the pure perfume, you're going to get this incredible journey of a fragrance that still stays very true to its former self. Now, a lot of my fellow perfume lovers out there that do follow my channel and that also follow me on Instagram, by the way, superdacob, all spelled together on Instagram, that love Chanel No. 5, also did tell me that to their nose and their experience, and a lot of these friends of mine, now virtual friends of mine, have become friends after so many years of reviewing fragrances and fashion. Some of them are already older, they're in their 60s or even 70s, and they do remember even older batches of Chanel No. 5, and they do also agree with me that the current formulation of the pure perfume, of all the other iterations and concentrations of No. 5, is still very respectful of the older formulations of Chanel No. 5 Parfum. What does this mean? This means that Chanel made an extra effort, whether or not certain ingredients that are considered more or less, because there's also civet in Chanel No. 5. In the new current formulation, obviously not. But to find substitutes and chemical ingredients that will synthetically substitute an odor or a smell, it's very tricky. Maybe in another 20, 30 years, if we still exist by then, it will be more possible to really copy a smell one-to-one from natural to synthetic without the experienced noses sensing out the synthetic aspect of an ingredient. Maybe that'll be possible in the future. But for now, it's kind of meh-ish possible. But with No. 5, I do smell out the extra effort made to stay true to the DNA of the fragrance. There have been many iterations of it. Here is a 15 milliliter spray refillable that is not in production anymore. There is a 7.5 ml version, which is still in production, still available today in a beautiful metal black. It's literally the same as this one. I don't know why I didn't put it out here, but you could check out in the card section the unboxing of the pure perfume, where you could see the metal package, smaller than this. And this is a refill. And it's so true what they say, big things come in small packages, and the smaller perfume packages and the more expensive it will be. The pure perfume of Chanel No. 5, the Recharge, a little vial, spray vial, comes in this miniature little tiny, tiny box, but it's very expensive, very pricey, but it's amazing. Then there is, of course, the 7 or 7.5 ml splash. There is a 30 milliliter splash, and there are exclusive editions of 125 milliliter, 250 milliliter, 400 milliliter, up to 900 milliliter. And I think if you invest even more money, you could go over a liter size bottles, both in glass and crystal, crystal being the Baccarat crystal. Some of these Chanel No. 5 pure perfume bottles come in leather cases. I mean, we're talking luxury to the highest degree. But of course, to me, packaging is relevant up to a certain extent. I do not need a leather box for my Chanel No. 5 because I'm not going to do anything with the leather box. It's just going to age and not age well with time because it's white leather. So you can imagine how it's going to turn yellow with time. Not just because of the dust, but because it will just absorb oxygen surrounding it. The thing I use the most is the Chanel No. 5 Parfum tester, which I always hunt down. I have my ways, let's just put it that way. I either find them on secondhand websites, or I know a lot of perfumeries that do sell Chanel, and perfumeries that sell all sorts of brands. And then I talk to the people who own the places. And sometimes, you know, if they're receiving new batch of new perfumes and they still have an old tester, I want to buy it. I ask them, I'll give you money, I'll just buy it. And sometimes they're super gracious about it. They just gift me it. Or sometimes I do, you know, let's just say I don't pay for it because you cannot sell it, but I do leave a thank you note, if you want to put it that way, very elegantly. So let's spray it on now. Now the opening of Chanel, oh, this sprayer. Oh my God, it's so powerful. And the opening notes are still to date, and this is a relatively new batch. They're so animalic and intense and vicious. Acidic, the aldehydes sparkle and burst into your face. They are almost painfully beautiful. And you have that animalic, almost that, I have the feeling that civet just literally squirted on you and left. And it's like that's the opening of the fragrance. You have the aldehyde spark. It's like you're falling from the sky down to earth and something nasty squirts on you and escapes. And you're left all alone all of a sudden in this field of lilies of the valley, which are very, very poisonous. If you eat them, you could die. And you start running through this valley because you need shelter. There's a storm coming. There are clouds all around you. You have the feeling there are mountains surrounding this valley, two twin mountains looking at you. And you're running through this valley, and all of a sudden, all of these lilies and all of these clouds all around you, all this gray and the thunder, there's no rain yet. It's just so menacing. But right before it starts to rain and right before you lose all hope, lilies of the valley have stopped and you are encountering a field of jasmine and roses. And then there's like hints of ylang ylang all around you, and you are in a safe haven all of a sudden. But every time you look back, you see the danger, you see the clouds, you see the fear, you see the complications. They are there. They're menacing. They're not leaving you. They're just becoming a bit smaller as you're walking through this field of roses and jasmine and hints of ylang ylang. Let's get to the notes so you can get to see a little bit, or get to hear a little bit about what Chanel No. 5 is all about. So we have the ylang ylang in the opening notes: bergamot, lemon, neroli, and aldehydes. You know, the lemon, neroli, all of these citrusy, orangey notes, to me, my nose, it doesn't really work on me. The only reason why it does work here, I don't smell them out particularly per se. They blend in very well with the aldehydes, and they do create what I mentioned before, this acidic tone in the opening note, together with the civety skank. This is a nasty kind of blend, and it's difficult, but with every good perfume, you cannot rely on top notes alone. You have to let them dry down, and then you get to the miracle. You get to the magic, especially in pure perfume. Pure perfumes are meant to be that way. They need time to get to know your skin. Every time you respray them, they're going to have to get to know your skin anew. And they're going to fight with it, and then they're going to fall in love with it, and then they're going to blend with it, they're going to make love to it and with it, and then they're going to have babies, and those babies are the fruits that are going to kind of be the effect of the smell in your nose, and that pleasure you're going to obtain every time you smell the dry down of the pure perfume on your skin is going to be literally the fruits of all that labor and love. It's like the little babies. That's how I kind of envision it. Middle notes: lily of the valley, which I have already in the top notes for my nose: rose, orris root, iris, jasmine. And then in the base notes, just to name a few things, we got moss, we got patchouli, we got the little civet, we got vanilla, sandalwood, amber, and vetiver. And this is just a tiny portion of the kind of main notes of this fragrance. The May rose isn't even mentioned here. They just mentioned rose, I think, regular rose, but the May rose is orris root and iris. Now, let's talk about orris root and iris for a second here, because the orris root gives a leathery tone to a fragrance, and Chanel No. 5 does have a leathery context. Civet blended with the orris root, very leathery. Iris, being the flower of the orris root, being very powdery. Blended with ylang ylang, which is already in the top notes, creates a ladder, a golden ladder. You know, Chanel No. 5 is all about gold. It's all about rays of sunshine through dark, menacing clouds. You literally, also, sometimes No. 5 is like dust over a field. We're talking about the pure perfume here only. I'll never stress enough to repeat this. You know, let's not mix it up with the other concentrations. And you have this constant kind of like dust covering, the particles of gold dust all over this field of May roses, and you have the menacing clouds behind you, but then as the rays of light cut through the clouds, you get the rays of light, and you have all those sparkles in between the rays of light, which is just, that is No. 5. It's just that powerful. No. 5 has seen also a variation of packaging and bottles throughout the decades. The first one being the most simple one, resembling the apothecary or pharmaceutical type of bottles that could contain medicine. And the stopper, mind you, was not this like flat, elongated diamond cabochon looking, not diamond, but more like a cabochon looking stopper. It was a square cut. Flat but square, and they kind of got elongated shortly after its first release. Then it got thicker or thinner, flatter or not flat, what have you. But the biggest transformation Chanel No. 5's bottle has ever seen, because it has always been transparent, it has always had its either crystal or glass bottle from the get-go. But the first time ever in history that the big transformation happened was back in 2018, which was last year for Christmas. Chanel No. 5, the pure perfume, as well as L'Eau and Eau de Parfum, received a special makeover. Now, for the occasion, I have to put on my gloves for this. There you go. Now, I'm going to show you something very special. The most prized possession in my collection. I haven't showed it ever before. This is the first time, and I thought, what better occasion than the review of Chanel No. 5, the pure perfume, to show you this holy grail of Chanel collectors, you could say. This is the Chanel No. 5 pure perfume bottle. It is a factice, or as they call it, a dummy. It's not the actual Baccarat red crystal or whatever crystal they used to make the 900 milliliter limited edition bottles, which they sold with the fragrance in them. No, this is the factice bottle used in the Chanel boutiques and beauty boutiques to promote Chanel No. 5's first ever change of bottle color back in 2018. This was the fall, winter, or Christmas release of Chanel No. 5. Now, since the pure perfume was not released in a 15 or 7.5 milliliter bottle, the closest thing I could get to was trying to hunt down the factice, because I mean, $40,000 to $50,000 or euro for the 900 milliliter red crystal bottle was just not in the equation. Also because, I mean, quite frankly, the fragrance, so if you were to purchase just the 900 milliliter in a regular glass bottle, would not cost more than $4,000 or $5,000, which is still a lot, but not 40. You know what I mean? Or 50. I forgot the price. It was insane. But anyway, let's give this one a nice look. I mean, you can see the reflection of the light in it, maybe, but look at that red. Oh, my holy grail, my personal holy grail. It's always with me, and of course, I don't touch it with bare hands. This has to be only touched with gloves because it's a very special product, obviously. A part of Chanel history, one of the most important parts of Chanel perfume history in the present years, I would say. I know it's not a big change for many. I mean, it's just a change of color of the bottle. But the fact that Chanel actually did change the color of the bottle just for once, and did a classic Chanel red, because it's one of Chanel's favorite colors, means a lot to me. So let's put this one down very delicately and get back to our review. Now, smelling it, oh, it's so delicious. As we are going down this valley, behind us are the mountains, our twin peaks. And through the clouds behind us, from time to time, rays of light manage to penetrate those clouds. And you know how romantic the vision can be. The painters, the old masters used to paint rays of light filtering through clouds on the horizon. And you would have almost like a mist or a fog that kind of runs through those rays of light, and it looks like particles of gold dust. That's what we're having here in this valley. We have these particles of gold dust, almost as if the Chanel No. 5 Fragment d'Eaux, by the way, check that out. A link is in the card up there and also in the description box down below. The gold glittery liquid of Chanel No. 5. You can envision those particles of gold in that valley, and you're running away from those clouds through that field of May roses and ylang ylang and jasmine. And what is ahead of us? What is in front of us? In front of us is what used to be the sea, what used to be an ocean, what used to be water. Because you see, in this particular reality that this fragrance conveys to me right now, and this explains also more why I'm wearing what I'm wearing, looking so military-like, it's a battle for survival. The scientists were all right. Climate change is real. A couple of years from now, water resources gone. No more drinkable water, at least. And this ocean that we used to have once ahead of us is gone as well. It's dry. Completely dried up. And all you have left is a memory of the taste of water. You have the memory of how it felt as you drink it and as it kind of pours and runs down your throat into your belly, that cooling, soothing flavor / non-flavor of water, because water doesn't have a taste, and yet it has its own very specific taste. You remember water. And as you smell Chanel No. 5, and you have, towards the dry down, only a memory of the sparkling freshness of the aldehydes, it is like water. And this is where the 20s, with its joie de vivre, but at the same time, a sense of pending doom that was in the air, covers you up. And these are the 20s. This is Chanel No. 5. It is an abstraction of reality, and yet it gives us hints of the future. It warns you. It warns you that something might happen at any moment, and it's not a good thing. Nothing good can happen, because we're damaging everything around us. We're damaging the world. We're damaging nature. And so all you have left is a memory, is a particular memory of freshness and water and cooling comfort. As Chanel 5 Parfum dries down on your skin, longevity is amazing here, but projection is very tight. Very, very tight, because just like, you know, a little bit of water that's left just to be able to sustain yourself and survive, it's very limited. So what does this mean? This means that the only people that get to smell Chanel No. 5 Pure Parfum on you are the ones that you allow to come really close to you. And that is a virtue of a pure perfume. I know a lot of people erroneously tend to judge fragrances on their projection and longevity, not every fragrance, in order to be good, needs to last for days. Or not every fragrance to be good needs to project miles and miles away from you. It doesn't. Chanel No. 5, the pure perfume, does not project that much in the dry down. But for what it does project, for whoever has the privilege of getting that chance of smelling it really up close, will fall in love with it. It doesn't let you look back ever again. Once you've smelled Chanel No. 5's Parfum dry down, there's no going back ever again. And it's a painful memory once it fades and once it's gone, because you need it again and you want to get back to that dry down. And I'm not talking about a scent that is addictive like a drug. No, this is more a memory of a past, but it could be also a potential menace for what a dark future could be if you don't step it up and change your ways. There's sadness there, but there's also hope. And you know, this is not by any means a negative connotation to this fragrance. I find it extremely positive because it keeps you awake. It's dreamy and beautiful and intense and creamy and powdery and watery and warm and cold and fuzzy and sharp and edgy and smooth. It's all of these things at the same time, and it keeps mutating and changing like a virus, like an aggressive virus that keeps finding ways of surviving. And there's no way on earth that any scientist, medical practitioner, or whatever have you, can find an antidote, can find an antiviral medication to stop it, because it keeps mutating. And I laugh every time when I hear people say, oh, No. 5, my grandma's fragrance, smells like grandma's. I have never smelled a fragrance more timeless than Chanel No. 5. It is so abstract that you cannot label it in terms of time. You could label it in terms of colors, in terms of, this meadow, in terms of visions of nature or absence of nature. You could put a context around it, because we know when it was released. We know it was released in the 20s, so we do know the political context it was released in. But it could have been released today. And perhaps 100 years from now, some other Dacob will be sitting in front of some other means of communication, in front of some futuristic cameras that won't be cameras anymore, because we're probably going to have chips inside of ourselves. Could just record immediately the thoughts and transfer them onto visual, in terms of visual contexts. So if No. 5 were to have been released in 2019, 100 years from now, if there will be 100 years from now, some future Dacob will be telling you how timeless Chanel No. 5 is, and how fascinating it was that it was released in 2019 in a very complicated political context where countries are kind of almost at war with each other, but politics have become so more complex than they ever were in the past, and the struggle that humanity faced back in 2019 was a very particular type of struggle, through a lot of silence, a lot of political correctness used to silence people, a lot of conformity used to block people from growing, to block people from developing their minds, to block people from becoming who they truly were intended to become, to block people from being free. No. 5, to me, is about freedom. The pure perfume of No. 5 being the quintessential portrayal of that freedom. It's emotional. It's extremely emotional, and so important to never, stress enough and repeat this over and over and over again. This particular perfume, all perfumes, but this particular perfume, concentration Parfum, is a powerful key. It unlocks doors to you, to your soul, to your past, to your future, but it also unlocks doors on a higher level of existence, because it makes you visualize scenes in front of your eyes that are not there, that, you know, I'm right now in the bunker, but I see landscapes. I'm surrounded by cement walls, but I see a meadow. I see the clouds. I see the rays of light. I see the gold dust in the air. I see the dried up ocean. I smell the ylang ylang. I smell the fields of roses. I see the lilies of the valley. I'm tiptoeing around them because I don't want to harm them, but at the same time, my fear and respect of that particular plant, because it's so poisonous, is also overwhelming. And all of this just because of a smell that's right here. Chanel No. 5 Parfum came out in 1921. There's another very important milestone in Chanel's legacy, and that is the 255 bag. This one was released in 1955. This is another one of the milestones of Chanel's life because she was alive when this bag was released. She designed this bag. Why am I showing this bag here right now? I'm showing it because, oddly enough, and I've been thinking about this for a long time, this bag does not, this is one of those rare pieces of Chanel heritage that doesn't fit with Chanel No. 5. Super bizarre. I don't know why, but it, in fact, I avoid putting Chanel No. 5 in the bottle, the spray, the pure perfume. I avoid putting it in here when I'm on the go. And I always have Chanel No. 5, the pure perfume, with me. So instead of putting it in this bag, I usually put it in my pocket. And I think this has to do with the fact that Coco made this bag out of practical reasons. It was a very practical bag. You know, you could check out the review of this bag in the card section or description box down below. So I won't get into detail, but how extremely practical the need to create all the details of this bag is the total complete opposite of how unpractical and how abstract the need was to launch and love and desire Chanel and create Chanel No. 5. Chanel No. 5 Parfum has no practicality to it. Zero. There's no metal chain made metal because that's how people, you know, because the metal can't be cut with scissors. Nobody can cut your strap from your bag, pull it off you on the streets of Paris and run off. There is no Bordeaux interior to remind you of your poor past or to allow you to see always what's inside your bag instead of having a black interior. There is no kilted, puffy bag texture on the surface to resemble male horse jockeys, pouches, you know, that they use. There's none of that. Instead, there's absence of all of that. There's just a crystalline golden vision of pleasure and fear at the same time. And it's mesmerizing. It is scary and so attractive at the same time. The vetiver blends in with the sandalwood and the ylang ylang in such a way, but the ylang ylang is in the top notes, but it trickles down all the way through to the bottom notes. But the sandalwood with the vetiver, the amber notes and the civet, when they're drying down, it's as if at the end phases of the pure perfume's lifespan on the skin, it's as if they would be sprinkled with May roses, and there's those hints of delicate, delicate, delicate May rose scent covering all those more intense smells. And it's so magical, and it just like keeps you alive. It gives you like, literally gives you life. And I'm telling you this because I mean, I love Chanel No. 5 so much. It is the fragrance that made me love other fragrances. Now, can you imagine what that means? I mean, and I love perfumes. But I would have probably never discovered my love for other perfumes had I not discovered my love for Chanel No. 5, the pure perfume. And this was one of the first fragrances I fell in love with when I was a kid. I did not smell the pure perfume first, but I got to it very soon. And when I got to the pure perfume, everything changed for me. Nothing would have ever been the same. No other fragrance would have ever smelled the same. It's as if No. 5 allowed me to appreciate all other perfumes. And this, to me, means the world. So I want to thank Coco, and I want to thank Ernest Beau for delivering such an incredible thing. And you know, and we always say perfume is also super expensive, and all these perfume companies are ripping us always off because the markups are huge. In the case of Chanel No. 5, the pure perfume, it's irrelevant. The markup means nothing because this elixir is so special. It's so magical. It's worth every penny to me because it literally did allow me to understand. It opened my mind, you know, and opened my understanding, my soul, my heart, my whole being to all the rest that's out there. It was the fundamental key. It was the first key. It was the initial awakening for me. And that alone cannot be quantified in money. Money just makes everything dirty. It just creates a limitation surrounding anything that is actually meant to be poetic and beautiful. So Chanel, don't you ever discontinue Chanel No. 5, the pure parfum. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. I'm back for now. And please subscribe to my channel here on YouTube if you haven't already. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, superdacob all spelled together. And I would like to thank my patrons who are pledging and supporting me on Patreon. Without you, everything would be way more difficult. Trust you me. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, never forget to never give up on love. Love you all. See you soon. Take care. Bye.